Ladies and gentlemen, before I give the floor to our guest speaker, Mr. Usman Dogar, let me introduce you all first to our guest speaker. He is a graduate of the Pakistan Military Academy and has served the Pak Army from 1998 to 2006. He holds a master's degree in international relations, specializing in advanced studies in non-violent conflict from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University, Boston, USA. Mr. Dogar's expertise is in governance, political analysis, peacekeeping, mediations, and negotiations. He was appointed as Area Project Manager by the United Nations Development Project in Somalia from 2006 to 2009. He then served as project manager in UNESCO's Regional Program of Education in Emergencies from 2009 to 2010 in Nairobi, Kenya. From 2010 to 2013, he was appointed as the Rule of Law Officer by the United Nations African Union Mission in Darfur, Sudan. He was also the regional head of civil affairs, local governance in the United Nations Mission in South Sudan from 2013 till 2015 in Juba, South Sudan. From 2015 to 2020, he served as the Political Affairs Officer in the United Nations Assistance Mission in Mogadishu, Somalia. Currently, Mr. Usman Dogar is working as the head of the Political Affairs team at the Political Affairs and Mediation Group in Nairobi, Kenya. Today, we are pleased to welcome him as he joins us online to deliver a talk on a topic which seems quite relevant in our times today. So without any further ado, I give the floor to our guest speaker, Mr. Usman Dogar. And sir, I leave you with this question: that is Pakistan really at the brink of a socio-economic and political collapse?
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive introduction. And before I start my talk, I just want to apologize for not coming in person, which I had planned long with General Mozam, that whenever I'll visit Pakistan and I'll be visiting New Tech. Unfortunately, I fell sick and remained hospitalized for a couple of days because of this influenza virus, which is being spread these days in Pakistan. So my apologies for that. Inshallah, next time when I'm here, I would love to come in person and meet one of my even old class fellow, Yasser, sitting, I think, in the front row. I'm seeing you after 25 years through the camera. It was a pleasant surprise. Moving on to the question, is Pakistan really on the brink of socio-economic and political collapse? That's the topic for today. And what brought me to speak on this is one fine morning I was sitting and then I realized that where we are heading to. That was the morning in Mogadishu. I was on a mission, and then that day we had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Somalia along with his cabinet. And after seeing the level of interest for most of the ministers, including the Prime Minister, so I related it back to where we are today and where we are heading to, because most of the ministers, they were busy in how much funding UN is going to bring, what is going on, and how they can pocket some of the money in their own areas. And I mean, that was the kind of questions which they were asking us, because being part of the group of ambassadors who were dealing with the Prime Minister, I mean, I said, is it something we are also going through these days? And then, you know, this question brought me to some of the what you can say research, that what happened, when this happened, and how we moved on. And then a lot of discussion was going on that in the media, whenever I used to watch Pakistani news channels, that Pakistan has become a failed state. There is no chances of saving this country. But I personally feel that this terminology was used in a very wrong way. To my understanding, there is a definition of a state, which I'll just be showing you in the next slide, what exactly a state is. State has four components. any state which has a sovereign government, a state which have a defined territory and a permanent population, and the lastly, state which can enter into relation with any other states. That's as per the Montevideo Convention on the Law of State in the international law. So if we look at the factors, these four factors, I don't think so Pakistan can ever be a failed state. Maybe I'm giving a very, some of you might be thinking a sweeping statement, but that's what my belief is. Because yes, we can say we don't have a sovereign government who can run the government effectively. Our institutions have failed, are about to fail. Those things are there, but we have a permanent territory. We have a permanent population. So those two factors stays until these four factors diminish, the state does not fail. So that's basic difference which people need to understand. I'll be talking about little bit on the crisis, fragile and a failed state. As per the research center in the UK, I mean, in 2006, they came up with the idea of these three terminologies because previously people would either call it a failed state or crisis state. So in between, mediatory stage is the fragile state. I mean, from fragile state to crisis state. What I personally think is Pakistan is in the crisis phase of it. From fragility, it's moving towards the crisis, one after another. Any country can go through a crisis. It could be the health crisis. It could be like Turkey these days is facing earthquakes. So that's a crisis. So any country can face a crisis. But unfortunately, we are faced with one crisis after another, one crisis after another. And now the last thing that was the economic crisis. So economic crisis Pakistan was facing, I would say, since 1990, 1989, 1990. That was a time when we started slipping down because Pakistan has two eras. I'll talk more later, but if you look at the history of Pakistan, from 1947 up to 1990, that was one time period. And then from 1990 onwards, another time period. The growth rate for Pakistan from 1947 up to 1990 was 6 to 6.5%. But then it started gradually decreasing year after a year. Fragile state, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, different states could be fragile and could be susceptible to a crisis in one or more subsystems. It could be in the governance, it could be in the education system, it could be in the health system. So, useful. So that is basically a fragility in any state. So for Pakistan, I have identified 12 indicators under which I measured where Pakistan was in 2006 and where Pakistan is in 2022. I'll reach to that graph later. Crisis state is a state under acute stress. So that's where I place Pakistan as of today. And then failed state is a state. It's a condition where all the organs of a state collapse. I think it's around 8 case studies. Every country, it's a unique history. It's a unique dynamics. But I just want to relate these countries' crisis with the Pakistani crisis and how some of those countries came out of the crisis and how they went into the crisis. Chile is the first on the list. Can you see my presentation? If somebody can confirm me, please. Okay, thank you. So Chile was a effective running democracy since 1925 up to 1973. Chile had three type of political parties: left wing, right wing, and the central wing, centralist parties. But in 1970s, Salvador Allende from the centralist party, he won the elections and started different kind of reforms which were not acceptable to the US. Most of the copper mines were run by the US business people. But Salvador Allende, he moved toward Marxism and he nationalized the copper mines, and most of the business people hailing from the US, they were sent back. So that is a turning point in the history of Chile. There was a crisis after crisis after crisis, and Augusto Pinochet, a military general, he was pushed and given a chance to take over the government. It does not end here. They had arrested most of the civil society organization who are voicing, the media channels, the people. They killed over 2 million people within that time frame. And eventually people say that the Chilean president, Salvador, he killed himself. He did the suicide, but nobody, it's not authentically confirmed. Augusto Pinochet took over the reins of Chile. Immediately the US came back. They sent uh, uh, Chicago boys to help and fix the Chilean economy. A lot of aid started coming back. EU opened the borders for the Chile. The growth went even up to 10%. But and then they took back the copper mines, which were taken from the US business people. It moved, excuse me. In 1989, Augusto Pinochet was also removed from the government, but he made changes in the constitution in a way that the military and the right-wing party will always have a role in Chilean's government. Next is the Indonesia. It's a Muslim country, we all know, got independence in 1945. And the first president was Sukarno. Like we had Qaid-e-Azam, so Sukarno was seen as the father of the nation and very popular, but one mistake he made. He went to the Chinese bloc, communist, and even he pulled out from the United Nations. Indonesia was pulled out of the UN, and most of the policies were against the West. That was a time of bipolar. I'll try to summarize these things, and then I'll leave it to your best judgment that when the leaders make decisions based on either their own inclination or based on their idealism in the world, that do impact on the countries in the longer run. Sukarno's pro-Sukarno, couple of people within the army agitated, and they killed 6 of the generals out of 7. Few people say it was a plot by Suharto, the army chief then, to take over the government and then to kick out Sukarno from the government. But still, these are all conspiracy theories. But that's what happened. Suharto in 1968 took over Indonesia. He went back to the UN. He went back to the US bloc. All the aid started flowing back. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, they emerged as the emerging powers in the world economically. That was a time in 70s and 80s. And General Suharto, he completely shifted his policies towards the US bloc. Next is the Sudan, where I worked in 2010. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir used to think that nothing is going to happen to him. That was the time when a referendum was being planned. Some cases were made against him. He was even invited when South Sudan was made as an independent country, that without firing a bullet, a country got independence or separation from another country. But what happened next? Within a couple of years, Omar al-Bashir, he was thrown out of the government and now he is sitting in a jail. I think when the leaders are in power, they don't realize. Probably they don't like the advisors around them who can genuinely speak the truth. So that is very, very unfortunate part. And that's what I've seen within my own country. I mean, may it be the Musharraf's time or the Bhutto's time, or it was the last government. When the leaders are in power, they don't listen. That's the very unfortunate part of it. Italy, Japan. Now, I mean, these are the examples from the developed worlds. Since 1945, after the Second World War, when the monarchy was finished in Italy, you won't believe that there had been 68 governments in Italy. So the average is 13 months only. We talk about that if there'll be elections, that will bring the country back. Is Italy back? Italy is a developed country. Italy is progressing. Italy is part of G20. And same is the situation of Japan. Since 1946 up till today, there were 64 consecutive governments which changed. Nobody can doubt about the development and the progress of Japan. So the elections don't stop development. These are the basically institutions. As long as your institutions are working, the countries keep progressing, keep developing. But that thing probably we are not understanding. Why political stability is more important than anything else for the exchange rate? Because the people don't get trust. You bring political stability today, your dollar exchange rate will stabilize immediately within the next week. As long as there is no political stability, whatever reforms or actions you take, they are not going to bring any significant improvement in the economic development of Pakistan. Next is India, 1991. And you'll be surprised to know that till 1990, India was progressing less than 3% of the GDP. And Pakistan was going 6 to 6.5. So then what happened in 1991? That was the structural reforms based on the consensus between the government and the opposition. And that is the time of Chandrasekhar was removed. Narasimha Rao was the prime minister, and he appointed dynamic leader Manmohan Singh as his finance minister. India was looking for $1.8 billion only from the IMF, and they were in a deep, deep problem. India had only 3 weeks of reserves to import, a very similar situation like Pakistan. But one thing Manmohan Singh did, and that was number one, he let the dollar and the Indian rupee be decided based on the open market. I mean, the thing we suffered in the last couple of months, there was a huge difference between the dollar exchange rate and the interbank rate. And that encouraged people to send money through hundi, through illegal means. And based on that, you lost a lot of money. And people like me who were sitting outside, I mean, in such situation, who want to invest. And secondly, even if you send money through the banking channel, you were losing 30 to 40 rupees per dollar. So he fixed the exchange rate. He spoke to his secretaries, all the civil servants, that those who would go with the change, they will be retained. Rest, they are going to find something else for them. And people towed the line. There was no opposition who opposed Manmohan Singh's economic reforms until today, whether it's Modi's government, BJP is in government or Congress in government. One thing they unanimously agreed that no changes will happen to the economic reforms which they built. But one thing I want to highlight here is till 1990, India was completely in the Russian bloc. So there was a shift in the external level as well. As soon as they moved to the US bloc and the West, the world opened for them. They did not stop there. They even had an agreement within 92, 93 with the China. I mean, the arch rival for India. But their agenda was different. Their motive was different. Unlike us, we really don't know in which block we are. One fine morning, one leader wakes up and he thinks that he need to go there without calculating the cost of it. Bangladesh. Most of you must be hearing about what Bangladesh is today and what Bangladesh was after 1970s. Even up to 2000, 2006, Bangladesh was only at 2%, 2.5% economy. But then what suddenly happened in Bangladesh? That was the extraction of a new social contract. The current Prime Minister, she made a very strong decisions, putting people back into their places, may it be the army, may it be the civil servants, or even the political parties. There could be a debate that there are human rights violations. Yes, there are. There are several issues. But on development, she did not compromise. You'll be surprised to know that the country who is benefiting most from the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals funding, is Bangladesh. For gender, they are receiving a huge amount of money from the EU as well as from the UN. 50% plus population is women. So that is, they made big compounds for the women around Dhaka, all with the funding from the EU and the UN, that they are empowering women. But unfortunately, we are not looking at it. Not only they were given money, but their exports are not charged even 0% tax when they go to the Europe. So once you want to compete with Bangladesh, you cannot compete because there is a tax on Pakistani goods. I think in GSP plus status was given to Pakistan as well for a couple of years when we benefited. But the thing is, if we don't toe the line with the international decision makers, then you suffer. The last two are Rwanda and Argentina. Rwanda, most of you must have heard about the massacre in 1994, the biggest massacre of the century, where two tribes, they were almost, vanished. Over 1 million people died in 1994. It was the biggest massacre in the history of 21st century. But what happened now? Rwanda is one of the most progressive country, a tourist resort, and economically most viable in Africa. One thing they understood that they'll have to forgive. They established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission following that genocide. Yes, of course, external help is there. EU is helping them, US is helping them, but they themselves are also doing something. People only go for tourism to a country where they feel safe. Rwanda is considered as one of the safest countries in Africa now. There are business people, there are investors who are coming from outside. And the last one is Argentina. Argentina, like Pakistan, had been going through the IMF programs one after another. Now they need to pay over $453 billion. Argentina was declared bankrupt last December as well. Different governments come, they borrow, they run the government for a certain time, and again they collapse. Now the thing is, are we going to do the same? we have done 23 IMF programs till today, for which I'll be discussing later. This is what I did. Fragility and vulnerability risks in Pakistan. Uh, excuse me. There are four main factors. They are then subdivided into subcategories. The first one is the cohesion indicators. Next is the economic, then followed by political and social. Each indicator has sub factors which contribute towards the main factor. Pakistan ranks number 30th from the bottom out of 179 countries. And these figures are up to June 2022. So if I look at today's figures, I think we might have even slipped down because significant changes happen even after that. So this is the graph which shows the group grievances, security apparatus, fractalized elites, economy, human flight, economic inequality, state legitimacy, human rights, public services, and external interventions. You can see the gradual moving down since 2006, almost in every area with the exception of few. Here we are in the cohesion indicators, which talks about group grievances. I mean, the people like TLP, TTP, and the elite of Pakistan, how they are behaving. You might be knowing that Pakistan is being run by the 61 families. So they are the one in the industry, in the business, in the politics, as well as in the bureaucracy. So everything, every law is made for them. These are the economic indicators. To measure the economy of any country, you need to see that how much is the human flight, how many educated people are moving out, and what are the economic inequalities between the different segment of the society. So this is where we are. Political indicators. I've already spoken about, given you the two success stories. One is the Italy and other is Japan. And then, of course, the other countries as well moved. But elections is the only solution to bring the political stability. They could be a martial law today. But you are going to suppress the political institutions for 5 years or 10 years, but whenever you will bring them back, they will do the same mistakes. I personally believe, yes, I'm a soldier, trained, I mean, starting from class 8 in military college, then PMA, and then I shifted towards diplomacy. I have seen both sides, and I'll be very open and frank with you. There could be a growth under the leadership of the military dictators, but then your institutions don't grow. There is a very strong myth that most of the time when Pakistan had progressed, that was under the military dictatorship. I see it that under the military rule, probably the institutions were working more effectively. So that was the only reason, because some of the people say that because the aid was coming more in Pakistan. So that is the reason that those time periods were more sustainable. But if you look at the fact check, look at the aid which came during Ayub's time and look at the aid which came during Bhutto's time. The amount of aid we received in 1960 was lesser than what Bhutto received from Saudi Arabia and Libya in 1970s. But then what went wrong? Probably our political leaders, they have the tendency to become the dictators, and our dictators has the tendency to become the political leaders. The dictatorship mindset of Bhutto has destroyed this country. That's how I see it. I mean, maybe some of the audience would disagree with me, but the facts I'm giving you is you can check it. Our civil services, they were destroyed during 1970. Before 1970, if a deputy commissioner or a DPO is appointed, he would have a constitutional cover. No MPA, MNA, or a minister can remove him before a certain time period. If it was 2 years, he will complete his tenure in that district. But what Bhutto did, he did the constitutional change. And based on those changes, he brought the bureaucracy under the control of the politicians. That is the era of decline of Pakistan. That is the time when he nationalized most of the industries. I mean, most of the institutions started going down with every passing day. Yes, Allah bless General Musharraf. I would say most viable economic era for Pakistan was when he was leading the country. And that was the time when we moved out of the IMF program. So basically, what is lacking is the leadership in Pakistan and the institutions. Pakistan is facing three types of challenges. One is the enduring challenging, and then we have the dynamic challenges and disruptive challenges. Under enduring challenges, the first one is, I feel, is the political. And the political leadership, we all know we have a dynastic politics. But at the same time, they are so self-centered that they don't look outside their families. It's only Pakistan which is going down. Is any political leader's personal business has gone down? You will see the growth 500%, 1000% in their personal assets and in their businesses, because all the legislation, because usually the legislation happens based on the discussion within the public, within the academic institutions. But unfortunately, no one knows what happened and how they trashed all the DAB laws and saved their over 800 billion rupees. No one even knows what they have done while changing those laws in the last 8 to 10 months. Our every election is termed as a fraud election. Why can't we fix that issue that when the parties should accept the result, whatever it is? We have a neighbor, India. We never heard about that losing party would say there was a fraud. They have built the system gradually, but unfortunately, internal, external, or whatever factors affect, I think the people in the helm of affairs should realize that the country can only move towards progress when everyone will do his own job and stop interfering in the elections. And elections will refine the political parties and the political leaderships. Social contract, I talked about what the way Bangladesh had got the new social contract. Here, this social contract is the need of the hour. If we will not change today, I'm telling you, because in the start, our moderator asked me that, do you really believe? Yes. Unfortunately, I believe that the way and the direction we are going to collapse. Because as of today, I could not see any significant change in the right direction. Every second day you are hearing that the size of the cabinet is increasing. Every second day they are spending money on their personal gains and all those issues. And then we have the issue of state legitimacy. We have the human rights issue. You are hearing that one political leader is arrested. Any anchor who is speaking, he's being harassed. And then there is a myth of a strong leader. I personally believe we don't need a strong leader. We need an understanding leader who can build consensus. A leader in the time of crisis, if he cannot build consensus, he is of no use to any country. Pakistan is going through a severe crisis. And in this crisis period, if you ask me, I would be looking for a leader who can build some kind of consensus. I know there are issues. You cannot have consensus on everything, but on the major structural, economic, political reforms, there need to be a consensus. There need to be an agreement where political parties should accept the results, and handlers and the people who interfere, they should also learn the lesson and stop interfering in the process. Our health condition, look at the health condition, look at the education condition. Everything is going down. So far, we had 23 IMF programs for Pakistan. We need to pay back $21 billion this year. It's just the interest on your loan. And then another $74 billion in the next 3 years time period, from where we are going to pay back. The only thing we are doing is borrowing money from one side and expanding on the other. Look at your own household. If your salary is 100,000 and your expense is 150, from where you are going to bring that 50,000? So this is what is happening with Pakistan. The figures of inflation I have written, probably they are 2 weeks or 3 weeks old. Now, even we have gone further than that. Food prices from January 2022 up to now have increased 3 times in Pakistan. We are the 21st most expensive country in the world. I mean, that myth has gone when people would say that Pakistan is a very cheap country. What will happen if we are declared as default? This 35.5% inflation will jump close to 90 to 100%. Whatever we are buying today, you won't be able to buy because you will need 3 to 4 times more money even to buy the grocery items. Our reserves fell from $24 billion to just, I think now it's 3.1 billion. Yesterday I was saying. Again, the rupee, I mean, as I said, it's 2 weeks back when I made, now it is 275. I mean, people are speculating even over 300 in coming days. 2 eras of economic growth, I have already touched upon that. But then what happened? The first era, there were 4 very successful institutions. One was Pakistan Economic Industrial Development Corporation. Now it's only the office in Karachi. Maybe nobody even knows about Industrial Development Corporation of Pakistan. Second was the WAPDA. Third was your PIA. And the fourth was Agriculture Development Corporation. When Pakistan came into being, we were only 20 million people or 25 million people. So we had the food scarcity. Agriculture Development Corporation, with the help of the outside world, they developed the policies and Pakistan became surplus in wheat, surplus in rice and many things. But look at today, you don't get floor, and Pakistan is the agriculture country. Look at the decline in every field. Where is WAPDA? You have to owe a lot of money. Where is PIE? Over 500 billion rupees default. So basically, our bureaucracy has destroyed one after another every institution of this country. Look at the number of the bureaucrats who had taken nationalities outside. I was speaking to one of my classmates other day, and he said, don't mention his name, but 3 deputy commissioners are coming to settle their families in the month of February. So corruption has become part and parcel of our culture now, are the norms. So if a deputy commissioner in one district, he doesn't care. I mean, how you can improve governance unless people are not accountable. Anyone who studies, he's trying to go out. Yes, I'm not against people going out. They are sending you revenue, they are sending you money, and we have around 10 million people officially who are outside, and with their remittance, which is between 33 to 35 billion dollars, Pakistan is functioning. If you bring them back as well, I really don't know where we will stand. But at the same time, we need educated, qualified, and honest people here to run the government. Debt for debt servicing. Elite is, as I mentioned earlier, is the 61 families who are capturing all the resources of Pakistan. But then the taxes are only the fixed taxes, like the GST 17%. You give it, I mean, whatever you buy, even the mobile card and the basic things, they are deducted at the source. But there is no comprehensive tax collection method based on your income. I mean, the rich people are getting richer with every passing day because we are not collecting taxes as the West is collecting. I mean, there is 35 to 40% taxes on based on their income. If your income is less, your tax will be less. But here it's the, I mean, everybody's paying almost the equal amount of tax. These are some of the governance issues which I was discussing before as well. Our need is immediately to reform the bureaucracy. We need a local government system. The countries, the developed countries, the developing countries are the countries who are moving towards development. Their local governance system is very effective. And I interacted with a couple of people, and they were speaking very high about the devolution plan during General Musharraf's era, and the amount of work which happened during that time never took place after that. We need to look at the industry. Rule of law is missing. It's not only missing, but it does not exist. It looks like from the rule of law perspective or the human rights perspective that we are getting worse than Afghanistan. I really don't know as and when the decision makers will wake up and realize, as I mentioned earlier, that when people are in power, either they don't want to listen to the facts or people don't tell them the facts. Everybody is scared to save his job. Everyone is scared to save his position. But I think people are not aware that if they will remain scared, this country, it will be very difficult to save the country. These are our dynamic challenges. We have non-state actors, TTP, BLA, I mean, even TLP in Punjab, and other sectarian issues which Pakistan is facing. We have some disruptive challenges, internal and external. Of course, as I mentioned, that when a leader of a country makes a decision which way to go, it has a cost. There is, as they say, there is no free lunch. So whatever decision you make, I think you have to think 1,000 times that how my decision is going to impact on 220 million people. If you don't think that way, because even now things are bad, but people are busy in political scoring. They are not worried about that Pakistan is going towards the economic default. They are just comparing when our time was, we had done this. I know, yes, political leaders tend to get the political advantages, but a time should come where a realization within the public, within the masses, that if Pakistan is, we are. अगर पाकिस्तान ना रहा तो हम किधर चले जाएंगे? I think there are two scenarios now for us. One is that we bring the structural changes to inclusive institutions. As of now, we have the extractive institutions because that's how Britain had developed for the subcontinent. When they came, we were 30% plus GDP, India, this subcontinent. And when they left, it was 4.5%. Because they made these institutions as extractive. But whereas in their own country, their bureaucracy does not behave like this. They don't have the houses on 12 acres or 25 acres for the deputy commissioner. But here the mindset is the same. People are behaving in the same way and no government is willing to change and the bureaucracy is not ready to accept that change. But these are the fundamental structural changes. If we will not make, I think there is no way we can save ourselves. And the second, I mean, the way this Bangladesh has developed, this Rwanda has done, Chile has done, Indonesia has done. They all went through the crisis, but they came out of the crisis through selective changes. So that is my first recommendation, I would say, first scenario. The second is that we keep begging in front of our friends and then we come back with a lot of restrictions and we will borrow today, we will collapse tomorrow, we'll borrow again and we'll collapse tomorrow. So this cycle will continue otherwise. What is the way forward? It's the checklist of 12 things which I identified that unless we don't acknowledge the problem, the crisis, and then we accept responsibility. And then you can go through, I'll not go one by one. But these are the 12 things I think government should understand. Our political leaders should understand. And whosoever has made mistake down the line, accept the responsibility and volunteer himself to fix that issue. And I would say the people who are around these, the leaders, the decision makers, they should also realize that if they don't speak today and after retirement, people say, oh, no, their conscience has woken up. I don't see that that's the time of the conscience. Your conscience should wake up when you are in service. Your conscience should wake up when you can really make a change. Until unless we don't speak, I'm telling you, there is no solution to it. How many people they can fire? If the political leaders can change one deputy commissioner, the second, the third, the fourth, if they agree on not to listen to the illegitimate orders, end of the day, they'll have to change. But look at the posting transfers I have seen now in Punjab. Believe you me, every second deputy commissioner, the RPOs and the DPOs, they are kind of giving allegedly oaths to crush the opposition, and only those officers are being appointed. So with this mindset and with this attitude, do you think we can save Pakistan? The role of the youth, what youth can do in such situation. The culture prevailing in the universities and colleges. And I was shocked in last 7-8 months. My brother is running a construction company and he was looking for accountant, and sometime he would ask me to come and sit on the interview panel. And believe you me, in 8 months, we could not find one good accountant for his construction company. So what are we producing? Are the students busy only in cheating and just to get the degree? Even if you want to go to the job market, are we adjusting our curriculum as per the needs of the people? Unfortunately not. I think institutions need to think. Students need to focus on that your focus should be to speak the truth, be honest, and improve your skills. Learn the new entrepreneurial skills which can help you to find new jobs in the market. Even if you want to go out to UAE, Saudi Arabia, or somewhere else, until you are not equipped, you know, the Indians, why they are given the first preference? Because the hiring managers think their skills are more polished than Pakistan. I'm not saying that we are less competent. Our people had performed tremendously when they were given the opportunity. But now I realize that the focus has gone more on getting degrees, less on the learning. So that's where our youth need to focus. You need to help to bring this social reform in the society. When we talk about the structural reforms, the new social contract, that's where the role of the youth is. Our 50% plus population is youth. And any country who needs to progress, the role of the youth has to be defined and identified very clearly and effectively. These are some of the recommendations I'm making, and in next couple of minutes, I'll conclude my presentation, maybe next 2 to 3 minutes. I know it gets really boring when only the speaker is speaking, but that was the only why we could interact. What we need is we need the leadership to think through and adapt to the new social context. We will have to allow the democratic institutions to function. We need to immediately implement the electoral reforms. And the overseas Pakistanis who are sending $35 billion plus, we are not giving them even the voting right. So I think the policymakers need to think through where exactly we stand. Economic reforms and adopt balanced foreign policy. It should not happen that one day you are going to Russia and then the other day you are closing down the CPAC. I mean, you have to choose the balanced foreign policy. Either you can keep balance, and if you cannot keep the balance, then the people you rely on, can they really help you financially, economically? Climate change is another challenge. I mean, you might have seen Pakistan has gone through the worst floods where, I mean, it's over $30 billion loss Pakistan has incurred. So if we will not adopt the climate friendly policies, these things will keep recurring. We need to have an e-governance system. If you reduce the interaction between the public servants, everything goes online. A country like Kenya, I mean, this M-Pesa, where we call it Easy Pesa here in Pakistan, we even adopted the model from Kenya. Over there, you can open your company within one day. It's a one-stop shop. But unfortunately, if you want to open a business here, you have to go to, I think, 35, 40 different institutions to get the NOCs. And by the time to get all those NOCs, you are already tired before start of the business. We need to protect our citizens and provide a safe environment. Of course, this terrorism is coming back again. We have to think through that what went wrong and where. And of course, we'll have to fight back this terrorism in different forms. But then I was reading a book, Next Decade. in which it was mentioned, I mean, sometimes these are the theories and hypotheses that in 2021, US will leave Afghanistan, and then who will be there to fight back Taliban? And then there was a name of Pakistan, that a role of Pakistan would again emerge. I mean, it was written 3-4 years back. So we have to look at the different dimensions, and it's the US writer who has written that book, no one else. I believe that we need to establish good relations with our neighbors, all the neighbors, including India. If India can adopt a policy of good relations with China, why can't we? I mean, India and China has also fought wars, and especially now with the economic downturn, and look at the statements of Prime Minister Modi, the way he's bashing us every day that they had kneeled Pakistan, taken them to a level where they are begging in front of everyone. Look at his statements. But yes, they provocate us. But at the same time, I think if we want to maintain relations, we should not be in a developing them in the begging format. It should be the relations from country to country based on respect, mutual respect. Gap between the general public and the elite. I think we are moving towards where Sri Lanka is and where Lebanon is. These are the two countries, I mean, which were bankrupt. And look at the exchange rate, look at the situation. And what happened in Egypt? Sorry, I didn't mention earlier in the start. They chose General Sisi to crush General Morsi. And now General Sisi is also in trouble. Already they've demanded Egypt to reduce its army. 1/3 of the army need to be reduced in Egypt. Sometime we listen to them without realizing that what will be the long-term impact. No, I mean, they have killed over 5,000-6,000 people, I mean, from Akhwanul Muslimin. There is a deep fraction within the Egyptian society. I think we also need to think through, are we going in the same direction? There are areas which need to be privatized, and without that, there is no solution. You might have to reconsider the energy contracts which you have made. We are producing one of the most expensive electricity in the world. Structural reforms in the bureaucracy. There should be a criteria that minimum it should be the graduate or the subject matter specialist, the one you make your minister. And anyone holding the dual nationality should not be either in your bureaucracy or in your any public office should be held by that guy. These are some of the recommendations. I think we need to look at our 18th Amendment and NFC award again, which has given a lot of leverage to our provinces, and that is even not spent appropriately. Without mentioning the provinces, I would say that the outcome, the intended outcome of the 18th Amendment, we could not achieve. These recommendations, which I'm spelling out now, I think we have already discussed. I don't have to repeat them. The last thing I would say is, if we only do one thing, and that is inclusive institutions. When I say inclusive institutions, these are the inclusive political as well as your bureaucratic institutions. Until they are not inclusive, you cannot progress. With the current mindset where we are using the policy of the extractive institutions, Pakistan will keep going backwards with every passing day. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very informative and enlightening talk. You spoke some very hard-hitting facts and truths, but I think we all are in a position and at that point in our lives that we need to listen to these things so we can do at least something about it. We'll open the floor for questions. So if anyone has any question, I'll rotate this mic and you can ask, sir.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned India's example, their economic reforms actually led to their a lot of progress, and India is soon going to become the 5th largest economy in the world. So my question is that can you pinpoint some of the economic reforms that were done by Manmohan Singh, and are they relevant to our environment as well? Can they be implemented here also? Thank you.
Thank you, Yasser. The first reform which Manmohan Singh did, that was the exchange rate. Within 3 days, there was 23% devaluation in the Indian rupee. They had artificially stopped it the way we did. So because of that, there was huge issue of exports and the imports. That was the first thing he did. Secondly, he gave a clear warning to his bureaucracy. Anyone who would not align with the reforms will be fired upon. So I think we also need to have some strong messaging to the people who are not performing. I think it need to be the performance based. It's not that anyone. I mean, the good thing about the army is if you don't do the staff course, you stop thinking about becoming a brigadier or a major general. Unfortunately, in our bureaucracy, you just need to attend the course. You don't have to do well in those courses, and you will retire at grade 22. Anyone who comes at grade 17. So that is one structural reform within the bureaucracy is immediately needed. Secondly, it was more of opening up. They went to China. They had an agreement, trade agreement with China. They opened up their economy. I mean, foreign direct investment started pouring in. But all those things can only happen if you have a political stability. Now, even the overseas Pakistanis, they are not sending money to their own country, thinking that if they will send today $100,000 and maybe in next 6 months, their $100,000 will reduce to 70,000 or 60,000, because everyone is looking for some kind of guarantee, some kind of return on his investment. So basically, they provided one-stop shop. They eased the business for the foreign investors in India. And then they agreed on that if it is Congress government, tomorrow it's BJP's government. I mean, the investors who came during Congress government, they were given protection during BJP's government. So people had trust in their laws that nothing is going to happen to their investment. But unfortunately here, our rules and regulations change with day and night difference. But until you don't give protection to the investors, who is going to invest here? Look at your situation with China. Even now, I mean, as per my information, they are also not happy with Pakistan. They had invested over $50 billion. You can debate that there was corruption in some of the contracts and stuff. That could be debated, but at the same time, you cannot treat a country who is spending $50 billion plus all of a sudden on a external pressure. That's where the leadership's role is, that they need to balance that pressure. And how they balance that, if they cannot, I think they don't deserve to be in the power, unfortunately.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर। सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि सर जिस तरह आपने कहा कि पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी किसी कंट्री के लिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट होती है, तो उसके लिए इलेक्शन होना लाजमी है। तो अगर किसी को उस इलेक्शन पे ही एतबार ना हो तो उस चीज़ का क्या सलूशन है?
बड़ा अच्छा आपने सवाल किया, और मैंने रिकमेंडेशन में यही एक रिकमेंडेशन दी है कि चैलेंजेस में मैंने लिखा था कि फ्लॉड इलेक्शन। ये दूसरा प्रॉब्लम मैंने, मतलब जहां पाकिस्तान के इतने प्रॉब्लम है उनमें मैंने सेकंड कैटेगराइज ही उसको किया है, फ्लॉड इलेक्शन को। तो बात ये है कि हमें उन इंस्टीट्यूशंस को ठीक करना है ना। अगर एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी फिंगर पॉइंट कर रही है कि भाई हमें इस इलेक्शन कमिश्नर के ऊपर एतबार ही नहीं है, और वो इलेक्शन कमिश्नर साहब भी बैठे हुए हैं, और वो सारे डिसीजन मेकर्स जो हैं वो डिसीजन ही नहीं कर रहे, तो आप एक चीज को बिफोर इट विल हैपन यू हैव ऑलरेडी मेड इट कंट्रोवर्शियल. So that is where the consensus is needed. That's where the dynamic leadership comes in play. तो अब यही तो चेंजेस आपने करनी. अगर आप ये चेंजेस नहीं करेंगे तो आप हर रोज पीछे ही जा रहे हैं. आप देख लें.
Sir, my question is, as you mentioned that the reserve, Pakistan reserve decreases from 24 billion to 3.5 billion. So where are those money gone? This is the first question. If you say that we spend money on imports, and if we get loan from IMF, so I think the loan will also finish in few months. So what we will do after that? Sir, you mentioned that Pakistan reserve decreased from 24 billion to $3 billion. So those money gone. This is the first question. Sir, the second question is, if your answer is that the money we paid for imports, so once we get loan from IMF, so the IMF loan may be 7 billion, 10 billion, so it will also finish very soon. So what we will do after that?
यही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ आपको कि आप, मैंने दो सिनेरियोस पेंट किए थे आपको कि अब हम कहाँ खड़े हैं. एक ये है कि आप स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस करें, अपनी एक्सपोर्ट के ऊपर बात करें, आप भी बांग्लादेश की तरह नया सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बनाएं, आप फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स को ये यकीन दिलाएं कि भाई जो आपके पैसे आएंगे वो हमारे मिनिस्टर अपनी जेबों में नहीं डालेंगे. अब आप पे लोगों को एतबार नहीं है. द मेन प्रॉब्लम इज, अगर आप स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस कर लेंगे, बहुत सारे कंट्रीज हैं जो IMF प्रोग्राम से गुजरे, इंक्लूडिंग इंडिया. जैसे मैंने कहा 1.8 बिलियन डॉलर के लिए वो लोग एड़ियां रगड़ रहे थे 1991 में. आज इंडिया के रिजर्व 558 बिलियन डॉलर्स. तो उन्होंने क्या किया? उन्होंने अपनी चेंजेस की, इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म्स किए, उन्होंने वो स्ट्रक्चर्स चेंज किए जो स्ट्रक्चर्स ग्रोथ नहीं होने दे रहे थे. उन्होंने चीजों को आसानी पैदा की. तो दूसरा सिनेरियो तो मैंने आपको कहा कि आप आज UAE के पास जाते हैं, कल सऊदी अरब के पास जाएंगे, आप पैसे मांगेंगे, ये कल फिर खत्म हो जाएंगे. तो until unless you don't have inclusive political as well as other state institutions, आप हल की तरफ नहीं जा रहे. आप डंग टपाव कर सकते हैं कि वक्ती तौर पे आज का महीना गुजार लूं, आज का दिन गुजार लूं.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर. मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है कि पहले तो जैसे सर आपने बात की कि कोई ऐसा पब्लिक ऑफिस होल्डर जिसकी डुअल नेशनैलिटी हो उसको काम करने नहीं देना चाहिए. सर सबसे मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट जो हमारा पब्लिक ऑफिस है दैट इज योर प्राइम मिनिस्टर, लेकिन या प्रेसिडेंट, अक्सर हम देखते हैं उनकी जायदादें बल्कि ऐसा ही है. पहली बात तो ये है कि ये होना चाहिए, ये भी होना चाहिए, सारा कुछ है. ये ब्यूरोक्रेसी में CSS के एग्जाम्स में बहुत सारी रिकमेंडेशन होती हैं. एक ब्यूरोक्रेट जो है उसको ग्रूम ही ऐसे किया जाता है कि प्रॉब्लम का वो सोल्यूशन भी आखिर में दे. लेकिन बात ये है कि नियत हो तो तब बंदा किसी को दे, जब आगे वाले ने करना ही नहीं है. जैसे कि प्रेजेंटली हम देख रहे हैं सारा कुछ जो स्ट्रक्चर है एहतसाब का वो चेंज कर दिया गया है. उनकी प्रॉपर्टीज खुला सबको पता है, वो बाहर हैं, स्टिल दे आर देयर इन देयर ऑफिसेस. तो सर मेरा ख्याल है कि सिर्फ ब्यूरोक्रेसी नहीं, जस्टिस का सिस्टम जो है उसको भी ठीक होना चाहिए. हमारे जो जजेस हैं वो ठीक नहीं है. दिस इज द रूट कॉज. जब एक को पता है कि उसकी कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं होगी, उसने वहाँ रिश्वत दे के एक जज खरीद लेना है, तो वो कैसे जो है कुछ करने से डरेगा. दूसरा मुझे अक्सर ये कमेंट्स मिलते हैं कि EVM इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग मशीन जो है उसको जो है किसी तरह से रैग किया जा सकता है. हमारा जो CNIC है वो कंप्यूटराइज्ड है, हमारी जो सिम है वो कंप्यूटराइज्ड है, बट मुझे ये लॉजिक समझ नहीं आती कि ईवीएम क्यों जो है इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वोटिंग हमारी क्यों नहीं हो सकती, वो कैसे रैग हो सकता है। मुझे कोई आज तक इसको पे बात पे कन्विंस नहीं कर सका कि कैसे वो जो इलेक्शंस हैं या उसके नतायज जो हैं वो कैसे हैक हो सकते हैं, जबकि मैं यहाँ देख रही हूँ कि जो नतायज हैं वो 3-3 दिन के बाद जब उनको डिजाइन कर लिया जाता है, उनको अपने अकॉर्डिंगली सारा मैनेज कर लिया जाता है, तब डिक्लेयर किया जाता है। तो सर बेसिक जो चीज है वो तो हमारा जस्टिस एंड ईवीएम का है, अगर वो ठीक हो जाए। लेकिन वही बात है, कोई करने वाला हो तो बंदा कहीं अपनी एनर्जीज वेस्ट करे, जब ऑब्वियसली एक नजर आए कि चोर डाकू जो है आपके मुसल्लत कर दिए गए हो, तो फिर बंदा देयर इज अ ग्रेट डिसअपॉइंटमेंट।
थैंक यू, बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन आपका है। मेरा ख्याल देखें, बात ये डिसअपॉइंटमेंट तो है ऑलमोस्ट एवरी सेगमेंट ऑफ द सोसाइटी। वो कहते हैं जब डिसअपॉइंटमेंट हो, जब मसाइल हो, तो उस मायूसी की हालत से निकालने के लिए ही तो आपको लीडर की जरूरत होती है ना, जो आपको कोई गिव सम रे ऑफ होप। मुझे पिछले साल बात करने का मौका मिला सिविल सर्विसेज एकेडमी में। आई हैड अ लेक्चर देयर and I can tell you they were very brilliant young people. I mean, I was literally impressed इनके सिलेक्शन सिस्टम से भी कि अच्छे लोग आ रहे हैं। बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली देखिए, इतने साफ सुथरे पढ़े लिखे अच्छे बच्चे आ रहे हैं जब, तो जो ही ये अपने फील्ड में जाते हैं तो फिर इनकी वो सारी अच्छाई, सारी चीजें किधर चली जाती। इसका मतलब है कि सिस्टम इतना पोल्यूटेड हो चुका है कि ये साफ सुथरे अच्छे ज़हनों के बच्चे भी जो इस फील्ड में जाते हैं, दे आर आल्सो मोटिवेटेड बाय सोशल प्रेशर कि उसको नया आईफोन चाहिए, उसको नई गाड़ी चाहिए, उसकी बीवी को भी कुछ चाहिए। तो जो 1% या 2% बच जाते हैं ऑनेस्ट किस्म के लोग। अच्छा, एक टाइम था जब वो कहते थे ये जो है ये तो बड़े अच्छे घर का बच्चा है, ये बड़ा अमीर है, ये पैसे नहीं लेगा। जो मेरी ऑब्जर्वेशन है, अनफॉर्चुनेटली चाहे कोई अमीर है तो चाहे कोई गरीब घर का है, कोई नहीं छोड़ रहा। कोई काम आप कराने चले जाए इन दफ्तरों में, क्योंकि अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं है। जैसे आपने कहा, आप चाहे करोड़ों अरबों जितने मर्जी खा लें, आपको पता है आपने छोड़ जाना है। उन्हीं के भाई उधर बैठे हुए नैब में, एंटी करप्शन में, वो तो खुद फोन कर करके कह रहे हैं अच्छा ठीक है आओ हमारे साथ बार्गेन करो। अब नैब के बारे में भी बहुत सारी मैंने लोगों से सुना, वो कहते हैं यार क्या फर्क पड़ता है, ठीक है उन्होंने पैसे मांगने दे देंगे थोड़े से। बात यह है कि चेंज कहां से आएगी। ये सवाल मुझसे मेरी बेगम ने उस दिन पूछा जिस दिन मैंने ये प्रेजेंटेशन में बना रहा था। मुझे कहती आखिर ये काम करेगा कौन। मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि दो लोगों की जिम्मेदारी बहुत है कहां से ये चेंज आएगी। एक तो ये है कि हम डिसअपॉइंट होके सुकून से बैठ जाएंगे, यार यहाँ तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता, इसलिए बस ठीक है यार, जिन्होंने खराब किया है वही ठीक करें। यस, जिन्होंने खराब किया उनकी जिम्मेदारी सबसे ज्यादा है ठीक करने की, लेकिन हमारी भी वन वे और दी अदर कहीं ना कहीं तो जिम्मेदारी है। मैं आपको बताऊं कि ये एक प्रोसेस है, इट्स अ ग्रेजुअल प्रोसेस। एक टाइम लगता है अवेयरनेस आने में। एक वक्त था कि जब उस वक्त भी धांधली होती थी इलेक्शन में, लेकिन लोगों को पता ही नहीं था। अब क्योंकि मीडिया, मैं नहीं कहता कि पूरी तरह आजाद हो गया, बट सोशल मीडिया आ गया, पीयर प्रेशर आ गया, अब चीजें उस तरह से नहीं रह सकती, अब चीजें उस तरह से नहीं चल सकती। अब लाइक आपका एक सर्कल है, एक इन्फ्लुएंस है 10, 15, 20, 100 लोगों का, तो एटलीस्ट वहां आप अच्छी बात तो कर सकती हो। मैं समझता हूं ये हम सबकी जिम्मेदारी एज ए नेशन। हम जब तक उठेंगे नहीं, आवाज नहीं उठाएंगे। अब देखो कितनी महंगाई होगी। अब सोशल मीडिया पे किसी ने डाला हुआ था, उन्होंने कहा यार तेल की कीमत बढ़ती है, लोग प्रोटेस्ट नहीं कर रहे, वो पेट्रोल पंप की तरफ भाग रहे। तो मेरा ख्याल है कि कोई थोड़ा सा इनर कॉन्शियस जागने की जरूरत है, कुछ थोड़ी सी अवेयरनेस हम लोगों ने फैलानी है। यूनिवर्सिटी के लोग हैं, स्टूडेंट्स हैं, एंड यूथ आर the main driver behind any change in any society. This is what I strongly believe कि जिस तरफ यूथ लग जाती है वो काम हो ही जाता है, वो फिर प्रेशर गवर्नमेंट पे इतना पड़ जाता है कि दे विल हैव टू डू वन वे और द अदर। बाकी जुडिशरी का मैंने पॉइंट लिखा था, रूल ऑफ लॉ का पॉइंट था उसके अंदर कि वी नीड सिग्निफिकेंट रिफॉर्म्स विद इन जुडिशरी। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू वेरी मच जी सब सवालात का। सर आपका टॉपिक ऐसा है कि मेरा ख्याल है इस पे तो सवालात लामुतनाही ही हैं और चलते ही रहेंगे, बट आई थिंक वी कैन सेव more questions and the rest of the questions for the next time you come इंशाल्लाह। और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि आपका यहाँ पे इंशाल्लाह एक फेस टू फेस सेशन भी हो जाए जिसमें हम मज़ीद इस टॉपिक को इंशाल्लाह एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं। सर थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर टेकिंग आउट योर टाइम। आपका भी वक्त कीमती है, हम इस सेशन को यहीं पर क्लोज़ करते हैं। आपने बहुत कीमती बातें बताई, अच्छी रिकमेंडेशंस थी और आई होप हम यहाँ से सारे के सारे कुछ ना कुछ सीख के ही जा रहे हैं और कुछ ना कुछ हमारी इनर कॉन्शियस जो है वो जागी होगी और हम भी जितना अपना पार्ट प्ले कर सकते हैं वो इंशाल्लाह करेंगे। So we will inshallah conclude this ceremony in this talk here. Thank you all the audience for taking out your time and for your questions, and thank you very much sir for your time and for this very good talk. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much.
You're welcome as well. Thank you.